Hi crafty friends. Today's project is we're going to learn how to make seed paper and make it into a card that you could send to someone, and it might look something like this. Now what I'm going to supply in your kit is a card and an envelope, a package of seeds, and a paper insert that you can put inside the card to send someone, or you can make one of your own on your own printer. What you will need to supply is a bunch of recycled paper. I used newspaper, tissue paper, and just some white copy paper that was in our recycling bin. And then you're going to need to find a piece of ribbon or string that might coordinate with the colors of the paper once you get it finished, and that you can use to decorate your card. So let's get started. The first thing you want to do is gather some paper for making your paper, homemade paper. And what I did was I just went to the recycling bin and I took out some newspaper, and I also gathered up some colored tissue paper that I had on hand, and I put it through my paper shredder. Now I don't have the crosscut kind of paper shredder. I'm still old school with the strips of paper. So if you have a crosscut paper shredder, it's all the better. The smaller the pieces of paper, the better. And if you don't have a paper shredder, you can always cut strips of paper or little bits of paper. You can tear little bits of paper up. You're just going to need to have a pile of small pieces of paper. So I'm going to go ahead and use my paper trimmer to go ahead and cut these pieces up into even smaller pieces. Okay, now I have my paper all cut up into small pieces, and it looks like I have 1 to 1.5 cups, maybe 2 cups of paper pieces, and I think that's about all we'll need for this project. So as you can see, I didn't need to use everything that I had run through my paper shredder. The next step will be to add water to this and put the lid on and let it sit for a couple of hours or even overnight. I've added quite a bit of water to this jar just to make sure that everything is good and wet. And it doesn't matter, you could fill it all the way up to the top if you like. You don't have to put it in a jar. You can also just leave it in a bowl, but I figured putting it in a jar with a lid on top would be the safest way to leave this for a few hours. Okay, everybody, it's been a few hours, and I'm going to go ahead and pour my paper and water into a mixing bowl. Now, almost all of the YouTube videos I watched about making seed paper, the people used a blender to blend up the paper after it had a soak, or even before they even soaked it. Sometimes they just went straight to the blender and blended up their paper and water. And then they would say, after doing it once, you'd probably want to dedicate your blender to paper making. Well, I don't know why. I don't want to use my blender for only paper making, and I don't want to buy another blender, so I'm going to use my stand mixer. And you could use a hand mixer as well. So we're going to give this a mix, and then I'll be right back. Okay, that was kind of a splashy experiment, so I did end up using a strainer and poured off most of the water and then continued blending for a while. One thing I noticed is that the newspaper has broken down very well, and the bits of white paper that were in there are pretty much still intact, but we're going to continue on. Also, I noticed this has turned into a gray sludge. So we're going to take this, and I have a bowl and a screen. This is like a grease splatter screen I got at the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to dump this onto the screen, and all the water will Just go right through and into the bowl. And I'm going to spread it out. And depending on how thick you want your seed card to be, you may want it thinner or thicker. I think we want it pretty thin. But at this point, I am going to sprinkle on the seeds. And I've chosen a wildflower mix. These are 4 for $1 at the Dollar Tree. In your kit, you're going to get wildflower seed mix that came in bulk, so you won't get the individual packages. But we're going to just sprinkle these seeds out. And then at this point, you could also think of any other biodegradable items you might want to put into your seed paper. Something like flower petals. If you have any flowers that have sprouted already, you could maybe put some petals in with it. Maybe some pieces of potpourri, or pieces of string, like hemp string. I was making some tea the other day. I make hibiscus tea, and I thought, what if I took my tea leaves and opened up the package and just sprinkled some of the tea after I made a bunch of tea into the paper, and that might be pretty too. It may turn the color of the paper pink because that's what color the tea ends up being, but I'm going to sprinkle some of that in too with the seeds. See how that turns out. Now at this point, I'm going to take some wax paper and I'm going to put it on here so I can press and continue to get some of the water through the screen and into the bowl. And if you don't have a screen, you can do all of this, just lay out some towels and you can pour your sludge right onto the towel and then press out in the same way the moisture into the towel. And then you can also take a rolling pin and just roll that over. So we've gotten quite a bit of water out. I'm going to take a towel now and try that method with this old towel. I'm going to try just dumping this right onto the towel. Came right off like a pancake. And then I'm going to continue with my rolling pin. And now I'm really trying to get the paper so that it's all even thickness and a little bit thinner than what I had it originally. And this rolling also helps to get the seeds embedded. Yeah. Now we're all ready to dry. If you have the screen, then I'm going to go ahead and flop that back over onto the screen. See how that works. There we go. And then it's just a matter of letting this dry, probably overnight. You could put it on a cooling rack so that the air can circulate underneath and above. On a nice sunny day, you could put this out in the sunshine, and that might speed up the drying process as well. As far as the tissue paper, I can just barely see little bits of the tissue paper that are still visible. I can obviously see the white bits of paper. If you wanted more of a white, we'll see how this dries, but if you wanted it to be more of a white looking seed paper, then I would go with all white paper. I was also thinking that old book pages that have been yellowed might be a good choice for this kind of paper, and then maybe come out with a more creamy looking paper. But we're going to let this dry, and then I'll come back and we'll see how it turned out. Okay, here's what my seed paper looks like now that it's dry. And I did put it outside in the sun, and it dried up in a couple of hours, and it actually started blowing away. So it might be a good idea to have a cookie sheet or something like your screen on the top and on the bottom so that it doesn't fly away. And it might also help with the warping. Mine has a little bit of warping to it. But the next step you're going to do is take the card that was provided in your kit and figure out how you want this to appear on the front. Now there's a couple of options. If it's pretty thin and you have any paper punches, like a heart-shaped punch or a circle punch, or even a butterfly might be fun. You could punch out some of the paper and put it on your card front. I'm going to just take it and tear it down the middle-ish and the sides. You could cut it with a paper trimmer, but I think it looks more natural if you would just tear it. So these two pieces might make good cards, and then I can use this piece and punch out some shapes with that. So I'm going to take this piece for my first card front here, and attaching it with a couple of glue dots would probably be a good idea. Or you could use some strong craft glue like this multi-purpose glue and just dab it in a few spots and attach it to your card that way. And then, depending on the colors of paper that you used, and if you added any colorful additives like I did the tea leaves, you might take a piece of string or ribbon and make a bow, and then you could either tie your bow on, glue it on, or put a glue dot and maybe attach that to the card. You can use this paper that I've included for the inside of your card. All you'll do is glue it to the inside like this, or you can print out a paper of your own, and then you can write some sentiment, a note or sentiment there for the recipient. And you could also write a note maybe for you or thinking of you or something on the outside of your card. So I hope you enjoy this activity, and if you want to post some pictures or send me an email with your pictures, that'd be really fun to see how everybody's seed paper turned out. Thanks for joining me. Bye.